Detroit Pistons select Luke Kennard from Duke University. The Utah Jazz select Darius Baisley from Cincinnati, Ohio.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Triple Double Podcast. My name is Corey Albertson of Triple Double Prospects. We've got Jason Morrow of 270 Hoops. It's going to get confusing today because our guest is Bret Favachio. I hope I'm saying that correctly, of 275 Hoops. Bret, what's going on, man?
How's it going? Appreciate you having me on.
Oh, I appreciate you, man. You guys are doing a great job, and we thought it's time to get you guys on the podcast. I know Jake, your partner, couldn't join us tonight, but I know he's told me he listens sometimes, so we appreciate you guys. And it's a good time of the year to do the podcast because it is tournament time in Ohio. Last year, as we kind of made stuff up as we went along with how we wanted to do this podcast, we did several episodes during the tournament. I did most of the Southwest stuff. We had TJ Petras, Zach Fleer, Kurt Stubbs kind of covering all over the state. So want to talk today a little bit about, recapping the regular season in Cincinnati and, the top players, the top teams, and then looking ahead to the tournament. But before we do that, I just want to talk a little bit about you guys. And, we've talked about you guys on the podcast before when you first announced what you guys were going to do. Zach was on here. We talked about it. But, just tell me, you guys came on the scene last year, Jake and you. I know you guys have added a bunch of pieces to your staff, but this has been your first winter actually covering the regular season. So, what's the experience been like for you?
It's been fun. It's totally different for us. This is our first year doing it. So, getting to know all the teams and the players and building relationships with the coaches and even other media. It's been a fun experience. But so far everything's been going good. I can't thank Zach and Jason enough. They've helped us a lot. They laid the blueprint for us, and we pretty much just try and, follow along. And it's been great so far.
Right, and with Zach and Jason, I mean, their blueprint is so strong now, and that they both really understand social media and that being such a big part of it. And you guys have certainly been on that. And the other thing you guys have done that I think back when I look into what I was doing Cincinnati coverage, I had a lot of written content. There's been some other people who've done some similar stuff, but no one's ever really done video before. And I know Zach has kind of made that one of the priorities with 270, and then you guys have really done that with 275 as well.
Yeah, that's Jake with that video camera. The first person I ever hit up about doing 275 was Jake. Me and Jake been friends for a long time, and the best thing I could have done was go right to him. He's been great. He's there every game day, and I think he's just getting better and better with the camera. And I know the kids love it, so that's what matters.
Yeah, the kids love it, and then it's also good for content. I mean, it's always helpful for a college coach who's far away to, maybe can't go see the kid on a nightly basis to at least get a little bit of video, even if it's just a highlight. And it's obviously great for the views. And, I sent something on Twitter, I think, the last regular season game or one of the last regular season games where I went to the Finneytown at Wyoming game and somebody made a play and I heard a kid from Finneytown in the student section behind me scream, I'm going to send that one to 275 Hoops. So, the brand is definitely growing. I know I don't have Instagram, but I know that, you guys are putting a ton of stuff up there, and I see it on Twitter, and, on the rare times I get on Facebook, I see it there.
Yeah, it's just getting bigger and bigger. So we just got to keep it going.
Okay, excellent. Well, let's move forward then to talking about this season. So since you obviously got to so many games, you guys have a good feel. And what I want to start with is looking at, some of the all-city teams and, being a scouting podcast at the end of the day, we like talking about the teams. It's fun. It, generates some buzz for this podcast, but it's about the players and it's about the scouting process. So I want to talk about what I put up online, which was kind of my all-city team. I do it every year, and every year I get blasted by a lot of people, and a few people think I did a good job. But what I did this year was my Division I first team, and I really struggled with who to put for player of the year because I knew I was going to put three Mueller guys on the first team because I don't really feel like I had a choice. And Logan Duncombe, Alex Williams, and Max Land were all no-brainers, clearly among the best players in Cincinnati. And in the Mueller games I watched, I kind of thought Logan had the best overall body of work, although you could argue any of the three. So I put him player of the year. Also put Nate Johnson, Lakota East on that team. Also put Trey Robinson of Hamilton on that team. And then also put a guy who I know you're high on in Julian Mackey from Lakota West on that first team. So just kind of give me your thoughts on some of those guys and the seasons they had.
Looking at this list, I definitely agree. I think I would roll with Logan too. I think he's the big piece for Moeller. Obviously they're loaded, so Nate Johnson, the first time I saw Nate Johnson was at the Mason event at the beginning of the year, and he opened my eyes right away. And I actually saw them against Oak Hills right before the end of the season, and he was still same Nate Johnson. Trey Robinson, I actually only got to see Trey one time this year, but when I was there, of course, just another good game from him against Princeton, and of course Julian Mackey. I've been high on him since, about June when I first saw him. I saw him at the Deer Park shootout, and he opened my eyes, and he led the Greater Miami Conference in scoring. So I think I agree with all six.
Right. Julian Mackey put up numbers that you usually don't see. When I think of the GMC, it's kind of like a football league. It's a lot of tough kids, a lot of well-coached ball, very defensive-minded ball, and the numbers he was putting up were insane. I kind of, as the season went, I was like, well, he's eventually going to slow down, but he didn't. And, both times I saw West, he was just a tremendous player, and it obviously kind of changed their program where they've really struggled over the last, 5 or 6 years. And, I think they finished 500 in the conference, which is a huge step up. And then we talked about the Mueller kids. I think those guys are obvious. Duncombe to me was just a little more efficient, does some things like rebound, does some things like protect the rim, and scores with very few shots that I think maybe give him the slight edge. But again, that team is really just based on matchups. The guy who's going to score the points that night is just the guys they feel have the best lineup, the best matchup. Trey Robinson, the thing with Trey, he had to take such a big step this year with his brother graduating, with DeMarco Howard graduating, doing the JUCO thing, and now it's like Trey, instead of being Robin, had to be Batman. And I only saw them once as well, and he had a nice game. They ended up losing at the end in overtime, but he really led a Hamilton team against Lakota East that was a little undermanned talent-wise to a close game. And then Nate, we've talked about on this podcast, has had just a hell of a junior season, came out the gates hot, and scoring dipped a little as the season went. And I think if you really look at that, that is because of the way Lakota East plays. Early on, they were playing like Taft, where it's going to be a little faster game. And then as they get into some of the big league games, Coach Atkins plays a little more deliberate, a little slower pace at times, and just leads to less possessions and less points. But I don't think it led to less production from Nate and his value. I saw them play at Princeton late in the season, and Nate didn't play. He was sick, and you could just immediately see when now they're down a guy that can create a shot. So really excited to watch his continued development. The second team, the guys I put on the second team in Division I, a guy I'm huge on, in Hank Thomas from St. Xavier. He's going to Georgia Tech to play baseball and had a really, really good basketball season as well. Dearius Marco Randall and Bowen Hardman, both at Princeton. Nick Smith, who was player of the year in the ECC out of Walnut Hills. Alex Mangold from Lakota East does not have the best stats, but a huge piece and one of the best players in the GMC, and a pick I'm very confident in. And then the last one, Will McCracken, fourth Mueller player to make this list. Another guy, points are maybe deceptively low, but had a huge season. Probably would be, if I did a Defensive Player of the Year award in the city, he would probably be a no-brainer. So those are kind of the guys I'm looking at on the second second team?
Yeah, I like Darius Barker a lot. I still feel like he's being slept on a lot. And of course, Nick Smith, tough to handle down low. He's been a big piece for Coach Cardo, and some other names on here. Bowen Hardman, I think. I mean, he's just a sophomore, so he's going to be crazy in 2 years. Coming senior year, he's going to be unreal. Hank Thomas. I only seen Hank Thomas one time. It was at Middletown. He had a good game. They played. I can't think off the top of my head who they played. Another name I like on this honorable mention, I really like Colin Tolbert too.
And that's what I was going to ask you is, who kind of stands out on the honorable mention to you? And Colin Tolbert's one of them. I mean, of the kids who were kind of on the brink, Colin Tolbert being one of them. I mean, he got off to a huge start from Mount Healthy. They won their first 11 games. I know they struggled down the stretch, maybe played a little tougher comp. I saw him in the preview game. He played very well in the preview game at Woodward. Unfortunately, haven't seen a regular season game of him, probably the number one team I want to go see. Aside from him, Jackson Holt, Owen Spencer, both had led Turpin to a really good year. They're going to be a team I want to talk about here when we get to the team section. Jackson Ames at West Claremont doesn't score a lot, plays on a team that doesn't score a lot, but wins a lot of games, and doesn't necessarily fill up the stats, but a really good player going to Miami, Ohio. And then two teams where I didn't put any of their kids on the actual first or second team, but they had great season, and that's the two kids at Oak Hills, and then really all five kids at LaSalle. I put their entire starting five on the honorable mention, even though they've got a group where everybody kind of averages between 7 and 11 points per game.
Another name I like on here a lot is Deshaun Krim. Saw him against Lakota East. He pretty much did. He was far and away the best player on Fairfield that day, and I just think as he continues to grow, he's going to be real good.
Absolutely, and he's one of, I believe, only two freshmen on the list. I know when we get to the D2, Rayvon Griffith is on there, and then Deshaun, I think, is the only other freshman. So that kind of includes the Division I. I mean, we hit the Muller guys. We hit Nate Johnson, Trey Robinson, Julian Mackey out of the GMC. Some of the other under-the-radar guys like Hank Thomas, is one of the other GCL guys. The Princeton kids, Nick Smith had a great year at Walnut. And we talked about kind of LaSalle and Oak Hills. And then moving on to Division II, Division IV. The first team on Division II, Division IV I put on my little article I posted is extremely exciting to me. And the reason that is because when I look at all six kids, all six of them are underclassmen, one of them being a freshman, one of them being a sophomore, and four being a junior. And those kids are as follows. 2 player of the years. Split it. Can't really take anything away from either one of them. One of them being Paul McMillan, the fourth at Woodward, averaged 33 points a game. Team had some up and downs, didn't have a great league play results, but he had a tremendous season, scoring the ball at will. And then Braden Sipple at Blanchester, easy to forget about, being that, the league isn't the greatest competition. It's a little bit remote, but he averaged over 30 points. He averaged over 12 rebounds. He averaged over 6 assists. His team lost one game, coincidentally the game that I was at, which was at Claremont Northeastern. But I think he had 39 that night or something crazy. So, it wasn't really his fault, but, really, really talented player. And then also on the first team, I got a guy that I know you and me are both high on, Cameron McKenzie from Hughes, was in that 25-point-a-game range, had a monster season. Isaiah Walker from Wyoming, who's picked up several Division I offers. Team went undefeated in the regular season. Rayvon Griffith led a Taft team that, went 8-2 in the conference, only lost to Hughes both times in close games. Rayvon led Taft at about 17 a game. And then Jakata Stone at Aiken, who was having a really, really good season to start out, got banged up a little bit, but, still put up monster numbers for an Aiken team that, I think is going to be very relevant in the playoffs. So, those 6 guys, give me your thoughts on, who you like and why from those guys.
Of course, I like Paul McMillan, Cam McKenzie, love his game. I actually haven't been able to see Braden Sipple this year, but looking at his numbers, it's just ridiculous. Not only can he score whenever he wants, he's shooting just under 58% on the season. So what he's doing is crazy. And then Rayvon, of course, being a freshman, he's only going to keep getting better. He's been, I think he got a lot better down the stretch. And, I know we'll talk about the playoffs, but I think they got a nice little draw in Division III. Isaiah Walker, right. Of course, go ahead. No, you're good. Isaiah Walker, he's came to our open gyms that we had, and he opened my eyes back then, and he's just been a key piece for Wyoming this year, undefeated, and they'll look to carry that into the playoffs as well.
Well, Isaiah's another one like we talked about with, like Nate Johnson, Trey Robinson, kids who had to kind of take the next step this year. And Isaiah Walker went through that with, Joey Edmonds, who was one of my favorites, graduating, and Evan Prater missing some time with football and whatnot. So, Isaiah was really the marked man in that league and just had a tremendous season. Both times I saw him, he was great. When it's funny when you look at those kids, like you said, Braden Sipple, 58% or whatever he's shooting. And you look at Cameron McKenzie and Rayvon Griffith and Jakata Stone, I think all those kids, you could argue that all those kids don't shoot the ball enough and that they're very efficient. Cameron McKenzie in particular, for a city guard, the city league guards are usually known for really pounding the ball on the court and taking a lot of dribbles. And, Cameron McKenzie is kind of the opposite, that he is really, really efficient off the ball and can score, and he's just such a tough kid. And, I love Jakata in that, he was asked to score a lot for Aiken, and he's a scorer, but he's also a pure point guard and can do a lot of things. So, the youth talent there, when you look at not just Rayvon Griffith and Paul McMillan, who get national accolades, but just all these guys, is very exciting to watch. Second team is where it got really difficult for me, because I'm going to give you who I put on the second team, and then I'm going to tell you that it was hard to leave some guys off, and I'll do the others. But first on the second team, Skylar Schmidt, is the one kid who I sit here and say, man, it's probably screwed him, should probably be on the first team. I mean, his numbers are unbelievable. You could say the competition isn't great, but, he was at 25 points, and I probably led the whole area. I don't know. He might have led the state in rebounding at Claremont Northeastern. Steve Gentry Jr., tremendous senior season at Deer Park after a lot of personnel changes there. He really took the next step with his game. Curtis Harrison at Seven Hills, another one, small conference guy, but put up monster numbers as a senior. Grant Wistman was committed to Cedarville, one of the best shooters in the class, put up big numbers. A.J. Braun at Bishop Fenwick, they started off slow, but he was a monster in the 15 to 20 points and around 15 rebounds, 6'8", has Division I offers. Evan Prater, no-brainer. I personally believe that if Evan Prater had been a basketball kid instead of, he's obviously focusing on football, which is what he's going to do next. If he focused on basketball, he'd be as good as anybody in the state. He already kind of is. And then the other two kids on that second team are Keontae Thomas, had a tremendous season at Hughes after, being a role player, playing way off the ball last year, played the point guard for them and just kind of willed them to some wins. And then Cody Holloway, who attended all of our open gyms out of Finneytown, still kind of figuring it all out, but a kid with a ton of talent. And, who on that list really intrigues you?
I like Skylar Schmidt a lot. Saw him against, I want to say it was New Richmond. Just a big body down low. He was too much to handle for him, and he's been doing that all year against no matter who he played. Steve Gentry, of course, one of the most explosive point guards in the area. Another name I like is Keontae Thomas. I just think he's a winner. He's made clutch buckets down the stretch for Hughes, and a key piece as to why they're 10-0 in the conference and ready to make a run.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we can't say enough about it. Somebody who I actually had it on my phone. I kind of have a group of guys who I want to have on the podcast, and Brian Wyatt, the head coach of Hughes, was one of them. And then he just went on Mike Dyer's podcast, so I figured, well, I'll let it marinate a little bit before we have him, because there's going to be a similar conversation. But he just did an unbelievable job this year, and the development. I think everybody thought Cameron McKenzie would take a step forward because he averaged 20 alongside Paul last year. But, Keontae Thomas is the guy everybody's like, oh, my God, this kid is so much better than we saw. But I told you, we got stuck on some guys who couldn't really make the team. I tried to limit the numbers to really add validity to it. And here are the guys who I kind of really felt like, man, I wanted to squeeze them on there. Number one was the Taft kids. And I put 2 Hughes kids on there, and Cameron's obviously, and then Keontae we talked about. Put Rayvon on the first team from Taft, but didn't put anybody in the second team from Taft. And you could argue a couple of their kids. You got Nakai Smith, you got Leroy Walker, and you got Romello Carleone, they call Fred. All 3 of those kids had moments where they were Taft's, best or second best player along with Rayvon, and were, crucial to that team winning 8 games in the league, and had some up and down stuff at the beginning, but, finished the season pretty strong. Evan Bruno, kid at McNicholas, who they had a kind of under the radar, sneaky good year. Some of the Division II coaches think that they're going to be a tough out in the tournament, and I unfortunately did not get to see McNicholas, so that probably contributed to not putting him on. But he had a great season. Anthony Felder from Hughes would have been on the first or second team. The only reason I left him off was because, unfortunately, with the transfer rules, he only got to play the first half of the season. But off of his production in that first half of the season, no-brainer for the first team. At worst, the second team. But again, that strictly came down to the transfer. And then the last one is a kid who I think is going to continue to be one of the best players in the city, and that is Logan Woods at Cincinnati Christian, Division IV school. Had some up and down things during the season when they played against, like I saw him play Aiken in a game where, they're just overmatched. But when we see him play against Division IV schools, I think they're going to make some noise. So, any thoughts on those guys, or, any other guys that are or not on, honorable mention list there?
The 2 I like would be Nakai Smith. I feel like earlier in the season he was banged up. I think about halfway through he started getting his feel back, and he was big for Taft down the stretch. And the other one was who was it? Yeah, Logan Woods, of course. Just a sophomore, so it goes to show just how much young talent's around here, and it's just going to keep getting better.
Yeah, and again, the Division I or Division II through IV first team, all 6 kids are underclassmen, and then in the second team we got 1, 2, 3 juniors, and we got plenty of other young kids on there. So yeah, Division II through IV has been kind of one of the staples of Southwest Ohio over the last few years. Division I, people kind of talk about Moeller, and we've had success at the state level when you look at what Moeller's done, when you look at Huber Heights Wayne before that, but Division II through IV is really where the raw talent of players has been. So let's move forward now. I want to look at the team results, and in the team results, we're going to be talking about who we're going to be watching in the playoffs. And when it comes to sectionals, I don't really break down the brackets too hard. I mean, I'd like to, like I said, do this again with some around the state guys, maybe, TJ, yourself, Fleer, talking about it once it gets to districts and regionals. At the sectionals, usually the best teams win. But I really wanted to talk about, at Division I first, and then at the smaller divisions, kind of the tiers of teams. And the way I see it is this. I see in Tier 1, we've got Moeller, and, they're 21-1. They're going to be a huge favorite against whoever they play. There are teams that can give them a game that could beat them, but I think it'd be unreasonable to say that they're not in a tier by themselves, and that comes with athleticism, that comes with depth, that comes with chemistry, that comes with experience and just raw talent. They play a little bit of a style without a point guard. They go through stretches where they're not the best shooting team, but they're so good at what they're good at: defense, team basketball, getting it into the post, so many different scoring weapons that, they're going to be a really, really tough out. But then I think the next tier, to me, and you tell me what you think, my next tier, Tier 2, would consist of 2 teams, and that would be Lakota East and LaSalle.
Okay, yeah, I like that.
So I think those two teams are, the two teams that have the best chance to beat Moeller. Now, I saw LaSalle play against Moeller in the second game that they played this season, and Moeller kind of comfortably won. LaSalle had them a little bit early, but LaSalle still has the toughness. They've got the depth of talent and five guys. Any of them can be your leading scorer that night. They really guard you. I don't know if they have the size and depth to compete with Moeller, but in one game, you can get away with that. Lakota East, same deal. A lot of young talent. They've had some of their sophomores be in and out with injuries. But with Nate Johnson's ability, with Alex Mangold, you have a legitimate big inside. With Caden Furman, you've got a kid that can score. All these kids are college scholarship level guys. So I think those are the next two teams. And then when I look to tier 3, I think, and this is where I really want you to give your insight, because I know you've seen these teams a lot. The third tier, I think it's really hard to separate who's better than who, and that is your Oak Hills, who I unfortunately haven't seen this year. I know you have. Your St. Xavier's, who was deceptively good, didn't have, struggled against the Moors, the LaSalle's, and the GCL, but still a very good team. And then Hamilton and Princeton, two teams with some talent. And then Turpin, who out of the ECC, got a high seed, and as a team, since they're not in the GMC or GCL, people can forget about those guys.
Yeah, I like Turpin a lot. I saw him twice this season. I think with Owen Spencer, Jackson Holt, and Dominic Canarella. He's just been clutch down the stretch for him, making some crazy shots at the end of games. I actually like Turpin a lot, and I think there's a chance that they could run into Lakota East. I would be interested in that game.
And Turpin has the shooting ability, especially with the Jackson Holt. Owen Spencer can stretch the floor, and they've also got the size that they can beat anybody. They don't have that kind of big game experience maybe that the GMC GCL guys have, but I feel strong about them, and I feel strong about St. X as a team that's going to be a tough out. Mike Noska's new there. He's trying to change some things, but he's played in the state Final Four, coached in the state Final Four when he had Jaron Cumberland over at Wilmington. And then I know off of who people don't want to play, no one really wants to play Oak Hills, and they don't have a ton of standout talent necessarily, but they've won a lot of games. I never saw Oak Hills, so tell me about what Coach Price has this year.
Well, they got it's the guards, Keelan Dietrich, Adonis Canaris. They know how to get it done. They ended up getting a 5 seed. I think their first round game they should be fine. I'm interested in the second round game. It looks like they could run into Walnut Hills, and I actually like what Walnut Hills has got.
Yeah, and Walnut Hills is going to be on my next tier there. And, the last two teams in that third tier, Hamilton and Princeton. Hamilton, I think Kevin Higgins has done a great job there. And I think it's his second year in really toughening up that team defensively. They guard better than they did last year. And offensively, he doesn't have the depth of weapons. But, when you've got a mid-major player in Trey Robinson, especially one that's 6'7", you're going to have a chance to compete in games. And we all know the talent Princeton has. There's been some turmoil there and some up and down play, but off of pure talent, at the beginning of the year, we were singing Turpin and Princeton's praises, and I think we're still, going to see them have a chance to make a run. The last group of, teams that I think in Division I don't necessarily expect to upset Moore. I don't expect them to maybe even beat any of the teams we've already mentioned, but are very, very relevant teams that can win a big playoff game. And those teams are this: Elder, who I've seen a couple times. When they're shooting the ball well, they're very good. I saw them in a game where they couldn't make a shot, and they're not going to be able to score. West Claremont, who I have not seen this year, but I know what they do defensively and the way they want to play. Walnut Hills, who you mentioned, we're both close to Ricardo. Love to see him do well. And then two GMC teams in Mason, who's always dangerous, and Lakota West, who's got Julian Mackey as well as Carter Combs, and two guys that can put 30 on you and can score enough that maybe they can have a chance. So of those teams, you mentioned Walnut Hills. I mean, who do you see as somebody that could pull an upset?
I think actually I might have jumped too far ahead before saying that Turpin might run into Lakota East. I think Elder versus Turpin, that second round game, would be real fun. I think Elder, Andrew Harp, like you said, when they get their shooting down, they're tough to beat.
Yeah, I saw that game actually. And that was the game I saw Elder where they really didn't make shots, and that's credit to Turpin because Turpin really guarded well that night. But I saw Elder play West High where Elder had to have made 12 to 15 threes, and they're a dangerous team. So yeah, those are the second round games that are going to be interesting. A team like Elder where Coach Schoenfeld's been in a million playoff games, and Turpin's kids haven't been in as many big playoff games. That's going to be an exciting atmosphere. So that kind of shapes the Division I. Again, just to run through it real quick, the way I see things right now, Tier 1 was Moeller, Tier 2 is Lakota East and LaSalle, Tier 3 being Oak Hill, St. Xavier, Hamilton, Princeton, Turpin, and then what I call relevant teams that absolutely can make a run that are dangerous are Elder, West Claremont, Walnut Hills, Mason, Lakota West. Looking through, we'll go a little faster here in the smaller divisions. Division 2 is different this year with the realignment being that Taft is not in it. It takes away, a little bit of the log jam, but still a ton of log jam. Aiken, Hamilton, Baden, McNicholas, Woodward, 4 teams that are really dangerous. But to me, Brett, I want to see your thoughts. The 2 teams that have to be the favorites, and you could put them in either order, have to be Wyoming and Hughes.
Yep, agree 100%.
So, Wyoming hasn't lost a game this year. Beat Deer Park in the one game they played. They don't have a ton of depth. They're kind of doing the typical Wyoming model with, 2, sometimes 3 guys who can really score and everybody else playing a role. But, it hasn't bit him yet. Isaiah Walker's been so great. You've got Evan Prater, consummate winner, has won a football state championship. And, you've got kids who are very bought into the system. So I'd be interested to see if they run into Hughes. We've talked about Hughes. Hughes has the ability to shoot the basketball. They're undersized, but their kids play bigger than they are. So, those are definitely the favorites. I could see that going either way. Again, Aiken, very dangerous, has scores. Woodward has Paul McMillan. It's had some up and down moments, but has the talent. McNick and Baden are 2 GCL teams who are going to be disciplined, who are going to play a different style than the CMAC teams. And, for that reason, can present a problem. Districts are going to be really fun. And unfortunately, I'm going to be out of town that week for work. But after the sectionals, we're looking at in the Dayton area, Trotwood, Madison, Thurgood, Marshall, and Kettering Alter will be the 3 teams that more than likely make it out of their sectional into the district. So that's where I think we're going to see the really high-level basketball at the Division II level.
Yeah, I actually like I feel like it's pretty top-heavy with, of course, Wyoming, Hughes, McNick, Baden. Of course, if Sipple keeps playing the way he is, Blanchester might be able to make some noise. I don't know if they can get past Hughes, but definitely a nice group in Division II.
Yeah, I'm planning on Saturday going to Princeton for some of those Division II games, and the one that I really want to see is Blanchester versus Fenwick. So not sure team-wise. Blanchester's higher seeded. Fenwick, has played against more high-level games, but, getting to see A.J. Braun, and Braden Simple, 2 guys who have Division I offers and interest, really excited for that matchup. So Division III, everybody's talking about Taft, and they're definitely the favorites in that region. The other 2 teams in district that I think, can make it out of their district and have a chance to play in the regionals would be Deer Park, who's just a couple of years removed from a state title, as well as CHCA, who I know you've seen a little bit and is kind of, floated under the radar this year.
Yeah, they got guards all over. Cole Fisher, Blake Lloyd. They're every time I've seen them, they've been tough, and I look for them to make a run as well.
Yeah, I guess I caught him on a bad day. I saw him at our event, the Ohio Valley Hoops Classic, and they played the first game of the day. They maybe weren't really fully awake, but since then their results have been very good, and they've got guys who can make shots. They've got experience for that level, so they should be good. That being said, you've seen Deer Park. Deer Park is a very good team. You've got teams like Dayton Stivers that are going to be relevant, but when we look at Taft at full strength, playing against, Division III schools, which they haven't really been doing in their regular season. Do you see anybody having a shot to knock Taft out?
Honestly, I don't. I just think they got too much. Nakai, Leroy, Rayvon, and then, of course, you throw in Fred and Muhammad Metz. I like what they got, and I'm not seeing anybody that can deal with them.
Right. When you look at like Fred and Muhammad Metz and some of the other role player kids off the bench, you look at, guys who are really Taft kids. AJ was another one, and those are the guys who I call them Taft kids, and that, they're from downtown Cincinnati. They've always been Taft kids, Nakai and Leroy being transfers, Rayvon being just a baby as a freshman. Those are the Taft kids are going to be the kids that can kind of get them over the hump. Mitch has done it before. I saw my first year doing this, Taft won a state title, so it'd be kind of super ironic if your first year if they did the same, but they're going to be favored off of talent, and, with Taft, I think the biggest enemy is probably going to be themselves. And if they play as a team at the level that they're capable of, they're going to be a very tough out in this tournament. Last division, Division 4, always dominated by the small towns. The small towns have had a ton of success in knocking out the Cincinnati area teams over the years, but a few area teams that are relevant. I have seen Cincinnati Christian. They've got, the talent to do it at Division 4. Again, I saw them play Aiken, big Division 2 school who, they just couldn't match up with. But Cincinnati Christian is relevant, made a district last year, which was the first time I saw Logan Woods actually. New Miami also made it to a district final last year. They're small, but they've got a trio of junior guards that can really score the basketball. Those are the two teams that I see having a chance. Have you seen either of those teams or anybody else in Division 4?
I've seen a couple of these Division 4 teams, but ultimately I just think, Cincinnati Christian with Logan Woods and New Miami with the Robinettes. I just think having those big pieces are just going to push them ahead of some of these schools, and we'll likely see them make a nice run.
Yeah, I think so. And then I'm not an expert right now on who the best small town team is. A lot of times those teams come from up towards, the Toledo, Lima area that come down here to make it out of the region, but be interested to see that. So, that's where we're looking. Just to recap this one more time, Division 2, Wyoming and Hughes, definitely the favorites. I think it's a coin toss as to, what style of basketball you prefer as to who you would pick there. Aiken, Baden, McNick, Woodward, all very much in the mix. Could easily see a Dayton team come out of Division 2 when you look at Trotwood, Thurgood, and Alter all having top-end talent and having had big seasons. Division 3, CHCA, Deer Park are very much in the mix. Dayton Stivers is a team that I think can make a run, but Taft is going to be the overwhelming favorite there. And then Division 4, a little bit of a toss-up. We think Cincinnati Christian and New Miami are going to be the Cincinnati teams with the best chance to advance. So, Brad, that's certainly a great start to looking at the playoffs. Again, like what I want to do here is, start with the sectionals, look forward to, as we get closer to district finals, regional semifinals, getting at this again with TJ and Zach and Kurt and talking more about the individual matchups as, we know what those games are going to be where, in the sectionals, usually we see the top teams advance. But I want to thank you for coming on. Again, it's been great following you guys since, you guys got started, and, want to wish you the best of success. And, for anybody that listens to the podcast that maybe, hasn't, gotten the chance to check your stuff out yet, why don't you just, plug your social media? Where can everybody find you guys?
All right, you can find me personally on Twitter at Bret Favachio 275. That's Bret, B-R-E-T, Favachio, F-A-V-A-C-H-I-O 275. You can follow our actual account at 275 Hoops. And then, of course, I got to plug my guy Jake. He's been great for us. He's at Jake Welch 275. And before I go, I need to call out my boy Fleer. We need to have the 275 versus 270 game at the end of the season. So we need to make that happen somehow.
Yeah, I'd be all about that. We're not gonna. Jason's gonna like this comment. We're not gonna do that cheating Jerry Watson shit where we do it in Columbus every year. But if there's a neutral site to play the game and everything, I'd be happy to be involved in that one. We can make a bet if 275 wins, Morrow's got to shave the beard.
I like that bet.
I'm not sure I'm willing to part with the beard for that. I mean, I'm confident and all, but I'm not sure. I'm not so sure that
old school Morrow would be supremely confident. Old school Morrow would never have said that.
And I got one other thing to say to Brett and Jake, and I know Jake's not on here right now, but you guys do have big shoes to fill because our first season we did have a 270 hoops team win Division I when Westerville South beat Lima Seniors. So I mean, Muller's the favorite. But that's kind of the rite of passage to get that, that first year, like Corey's even mentioned before, his first year of covering Cincinnati had 2 or 3 teams, and he thought every year, like, oh man, this is how it's going to be. But, hopefully Cincinnati does get one. I don't know if it's in Division I, but hopefully Cincinnati does get one so you guys can experience what that's like.
Yeah, we've been on a nice streak. Yeah, we've been on a nice streak with Southwest Ohio. Got 2 last year. Southwest Ohio got 2. Cincinnati got 1 last year. Cincinnati got 2 the year before. So I think there's a good chance that somebody will pull through this year. But yeah, like I've said on this podcast many times, my first year LaSalle wins Division I. Moeller, Lakota East are both top 5 in Division I. Withrow was loaded with professional level players. Who else was good? Princeton was really good. Mason was really good. Coleraine was good, which you've never heard anybody say since. And then, Division III, Taft went down to Division III for the only other year they've ever been in Division III, I believe. And, they won the state title pretty easily, probably would have won Division I, probably the best team in the state that year. So, I thought it was going to be like that every year, but certainly went through some real slump years. So, I hope you get a little luckier than me, Brett. But no, thanks again for coming on the show, man. And, we really enjoyed it. We'll definitely catch up with you soon.
All right, man. Appreciate you. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Well, guys, for Jason Morrow, my name is Corey Albertson. Thank you for listening to the Triple Double Podcast. This podcast is brought to you by PlayEasy.com. For players, coaches, or casual athletes looking to book a sports facility, as well as owners and managers of sports facilities, PlayEasy.com is the new one-stop site for streamlined services. If you're looking for a place to practice, play, host your tournament, camp, or other, simply go to PlayEasy.com and create a booking request for your area. Your request will go out to surrounding facilities who will respond with their best offer. Once you receive the offer that best fits your needs, book the facility and you're ready to play. For facility owners and managers, PlayEasy puts the power in your hands to maximize the usage and visibility of your facility. Register your facility for free today at PlayEasy.com. PlayEasy.com is the booking site built by athletes, coaches, and facility managers, and is proud to help bring you the Triple Double Podcast. This podcast is also brought to you by Anago Cleaning Systems. Are you tired of struggling in a dead-end job? If so, Anago Cleaning Systems has what you're looking for, an opportunity to go into business for yourself, but not by yourself. With franchising opportunities available for as little as a $2,500 down payment, purchasing an Anago franchise has never been easier. Once you own your Anago franchise, you're licensed to clean commercial facilities all around the greater Cincinnati, Dayton, or Columbus areas with the support of Anago's sales, quality control, operational, and accounting staff. Call 513-332-0033 today for your opportunity to be your own boss and grow your own commercial cleaning company under the guidance of Anago's proven and successful system. Again, call 513-332-0033 to learn more. With Anago, your future starts today.